Hello friend, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about the Fuji X100VI. It has been 160 days since I received this camera in the mail, and I've been slow to talk about it here on YouTube just because this is my first camera that I ever bought in the X100 line from Fuji, and it is a hype camera. It's everywhere on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok, and I just wanted to be a little bit slower in how I begin to start talking about this camera. So today is just going to be kind of a first impressions, why I picked one up. I'm going to share some just initial thoughts and kind of show you guys how I've been using this over the last few months, how I plan to continue using it, and then I'll end up following up this video with some best settings videos, maybe a full review later on. So main thing I wanted you to know in watching this video, while I talk, I'm just going to overlay video that I shot on the X100VI as well as photos that were taken. I think that is one of the most important things that someone can show when they're talking about a camera is what do the images look like. So if you guys like what you're seeing, there'll be more info at the end about how I'm getting these images, what the editing process is like. But without further ado, let's get into it. If you guys are new around here, this is a video first channel. We are here in my studio. This is just a setup that I had from a client shoot earlier this week. I freelance full-time doing video production in Kansas City. Photos is simply for fun. So when I'm talking about this camera, I'm primarily going to be speaking to it from that perspective. I didn't buy this hoping that this would be a professional photo camera for professional work. This is something that I bought for a few specific use cases we're going to get into later on. The X100VI is a pocket-sized fixed lens camera from Fuji. Features the same exact sensor as the X-T5 as well as the processor, and has those upgraded video features such as IBIS and F-Log2. So essentially a really small camera that packs in a lot of the same photo and video features that you're going to see in their larger mirrorless cameras that have the interchangeable lenses. When it comes to why I bought this camera, I didn't even know it was coming out. The day before the pre-order, I was actually having dinner with my wife. We were talking about the desire of just documenting our everyday life. And I thought of, oh, maybe we should buy a Fuji X100 camera. Ended up looking it up, and the X100VI was set to be announced the next morning. And so after sleeping on it, I think I woke up like late that next morning. It might've been 8 or 9 a.m. Kind of looked into it and I was like, oh, it's out. So I decided to place an order. Probably not until 10 a.m., did the pre-order and ended up pre-ordering on Amazon. And lo and behold, a few weeks after shipping started, I actually got my camera. So apologies if you are still waiting for your camera. I don't even know exactly how I got mine when I did, other than going through Amazon and not B&H. I have a few friends that are still waiting for their camera, which is a big bummer. When it comes to how I've used this camera, there are three main areas. The first is just going to be everyday life, and the second is going to be kind of trips and vacations. And so I'm not using this camera in a professional context, simply wanting to document everyday life more regularly, also beautifully. The video and photo specs in this camera are incredible and lend itself well to just capturing kind of those everyday moments, and the size of this camera really makes that accessible. I can literally slip it in my pocket. I don't feel weird about carrying it in public places or other places where a camera might draw a lot of attention. I've also really enjoyed getting to use this camera for behind the scenes content for this YouTube channel. I've often kept this camera on me when I'm on larger video productions and can really quickly and easily take kind of behind the scenes photos that I can use later on when I'm sharing project breakdowns with you guys. So if you guys have seen those, the last few that I did over the last few months, pretty much all of the B-roll has been shot with the X100VI. When it comes to my first impressions of this camera, I really like it. The size is incredibly small, but gives me the exact same video quality as my nicer Fujifilm cameras. That is amazing. Things like F-Log2, having IBIS, and the internal fixed ND really sold this camera for me. Put out some videos in the past about my kind of go-to travel setup before was the Fujifilm X-T3 and the Fringer adapter with a pancake lens. This setup was incredibly compact, but this camera gives me that, but in a much smaller package, and gives me IBIS, internal ND, F-Log2, and that is amazing. It is truly tiny. It is pocket-sized. It fits in your pocket, although it might be a little hard to grab out quickly. Here's a photo of it next to the XS20 and the Fujifilm kit lens for reference. When it comes to initial quirks, there are a few things that I haven't enjoyed about this camera. The first one is going to be the exposure compensation dial. I feel like moves way too easily. A lot of times I've shot photos on auto and simply use the exposure comp dial to kind of adjust the auto exposure from there to get something that feels right. And I don't know what it is. Maybe it's how close it is to the edge, or just it not being tight enough, or maybe that's my specific model. But I find this gets bumped a lot where I go to shoot a photo and I'm like, oh, why is it a little underexposed? And I'm like, oh, I bumped the exposure comp dial And so that is a little thing. I also don't love the drive mode. I've heard other people talk about this on other X100 cameras, I believe, but to switch between photo and video mode, you have to go into the drive settings. And the way they laid this out, I just don't know why there can't be a dedicated, way to switch between photo or video that's faster. You kind of have to scroll through the page or go backwards, and I didn't find that the most intuitive. My workaround for this, when I'm mostly shooting photo, but I want to capture a few quick videos, is actually to be in photo mode, and I set the front kind of button to actually trigger video recording. So while you're in photo mode, you can simply trigger a video recording. It'll keep your same settings. The only issue, and this is a weird Fujifilm quirk, I can't seem to adjust the autofocus mode, and it seems to be set to something like multi or like the wide tracking. And to my knowledge, I can't switch this. So sometimes if there's like something in the foreground, I notice that it has a hard time locking the autofocus. I don't know why it can't just be the same as, well, you have it in photo mode. Like the point-based autofocus is where Fujifilm really shines. It's what I use for all my photo and videos. And so a little bit of a workaround that I've found, but does have a little bit of a quirk that sometimes has messed up a few videos. Last kind of small quirk is just, I wish there was one dial where I could switch between full auto and full manual. You actually have to turn both dials on top, set the ISO as well as the shutter speed independently. And I like, on one hand, I guess that they give you that control, but I'm usually wanting either full control and I'm turning those both to manual, or I'm wanting full auto and I'm wanting the camera to do the work. So there's a quicker way to switch between those. I think that would be an awesome feature. I wanted to talk real briefly on accessories. If you guys are buying this camera, you will know that you will need a lens hood in order to fully make this weather sealed. And even if that isn't important to you, I think you should really protect the lens. It's fixed, you can't remove the lens. You don't want to send this into Fuji to repair the lens if the rest of the camera is fine. So you're gonna want a lens hood that has an additional protection kind of filter on the front. And so I bought this cheap one to start out. It was great, I really loved it. And then on my last trip, the glass inside actually became loose and it was rattling around, and I didn't find an easy way to like screw it back in or glue it, and ended up switching and went with the more expensive filter from Nisi. And again, I was wanting to save money. I went with the cheaper one, but the glass did not hold up to everyday use. So the Nisi one has been great. It actually is a tad bit shallower, which I love. Make this camera even that much smaller and gives me that weather sealing and protection, so I don't have to worry about scratching the lens. If anything ever were to happen, I can just buy a new lens cover and then move on. When it comes to best settings, I wanted to just touch on a few in general, but I will be following this video up with a full settings guide walkthrough of the X100VI for photo and video, every single setting that I'm using. So feel free to stay tuned for that if you are interested. But some initial settings I just wanted to talk through. So for photo and video mode, I'm mostly using a modified classic chrome profile. I'm gonna put the exact specs here on the screen so you guys can set up your camera in the same way if you're interested. And for video, the really only change there is I will use F-Log2 if I'm wanting the dynamic range and have more time to color grade. I've tested both. The F-Log2 is beautiful, but for most kind of everyday stuff, capturing everyday life, trips, shooting photo and video, I'm staying in that flat classic chrome profile. I really love it. When it comes to recipes, I've tried several different ones out there. There are some that are really cool. There are also a ton that I don't think look very good. And I just like to keep it simple. I shoot a lot of modified classic chrome on my other cameras. I'm used to working with those colors. I like the way it looks. And so rather than using recipes, I opt for my flat classic chrome profile. And then from there, I simply edit these photos using my presets. And so these are new. I designed these to match my video LUTs that have been out for a while. A lot of you guys have loved using them for Fujifilm cameras. And I wanted to make something that wasn't the exact thing, but definitely draws on inspiration from the colors that I'm getting from my video LUTs. And so I simply edit these in Lightroom. A lot of times that's just on my phone. I have these presets on Lightroom Mobile, and pretty much they are one-click results. If you are getting your exposure close, you might need to adjust the exposure or lift up your shadows if it's a little bit underexposed, but these are designed for one-click results. So while I primarily designed these presets for my Fujifilm cameras, I have seen great results using them on other camera systems as well, including iPhone. I am regularly just doing simple edits to iPhone photos using these presets, and I love how they've turned out. And if you're interested in checking them out, I'm gonna do kind of a full video coming up soon of just my exact process for using these presets, what editing actually looks like. There's going to be a link to them below. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you found this video helpful. This was not my full review of the X100VI, so please let me know down below what you would want to see answered in a more full-length dedicated review. I think this is very similar to a lot of the other Fujifilm cameras that I've used and reviewed already on this channel, just in that really small point and shoot style body with a fixed lens. So let me know down below what you guys would be interested in learning about this camera, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.